Hi, Mom. So, you're my mom. Can you state your full name for everybody?
My name is Patsy Ann Pilkington, maiden name Pilkington Parker.
So, what kind of last name is Pilkington, by the way? I mean, in case somebody's wondering, they're like, well, what the heck is Pilkington exactly?
It's English name.
Okay. So, we have an English background, from what I'm understanding. From that was on your father's side, correct?
That's correct.
And on your mother's side, I believe we have some Irish, and I think we have some Scottish from your mother's side as well. I think as well.
And there is Irish Scottish on my father's side of the family as well.
Right. And you're the next to the oldest of seven kids, correct?
Yes, my mother had 7 children, 6 girls, 1 boy. There was 2 girls, which I'm the number two.
Mm-hmm.
Then my brother, and then there was the rest of girls.
So, was the oldest child, how much older was she than from you?
Not quite 2 years difference in our ages.
Okay. So what so you only have one brother, correct?
That's correct.
And your brother is a junior, like I explained in my introduction that your father was a senior and your brother is the junior.
That's correct.
And so what is your oldest sister's name?
My oldest sister's name was Johnny, which was named after my grandfather, since she was the first grandchild on
Mhm.
my father's side of the family. Johnny Faye.
Okay. And then it was you and yours is Patsy Ann and then there's Charlie Edward Jr.
Then there's Nancy Carol
Mhm.
Taylor, Pilkington Taylor.
Mhm.
Then there was Alice Virginia Pilkington Elkins.
Mhm.
Then there was Karen Jeanette Pilkington. Then there was Nona Renee Pilkington
She's a foster now, correct?
Foster.
Right. Okay, so from what I'm remembering, that Aunt Faye was born in 1948. You were born in 1950, June 11th, 1950. Were you born? I know you were born in Tennessee, and we've always said that you were born in Covington. Were you born in Covington, or was it outside of Covington by any
I
chance?
was born in Covington, but my parents lived in a place called Staten, Tennessee.
Okay, so that must be one of the suburbs of Covington, you might say.
I would say yes. It's on the outside of Tennessee. I'm not sure what direction. So I
Okay,
just
fair enough. So, what kind of work did your father do when you were first growing up? Exactly.
when I first grew up, my first 5 years, or say first 6 years of my life, my dad was a sharecropper, which meant that he farmed a land that belonged to another person, and he planted the crops at this time, which was at the time cotton was the king.
Mm-hmm.
So he planted cotton. He worked for this man, and I don't know how much the, he gave, but my father had a part of the. He planted the land and planted it, harvested, and then sold it, and then some of it went to the owner of the home that owned the land, and some went to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so did your mother pick the cotton and stuff like that as well, or was she a housemaker? Did she work outside of the home exactly?
My mom was a homemaker, but she also did her part by picking cotton as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
between my dad and my mom, on any given day, they could pick a bale of cotton, which was close to over 800 pounds in a day.
Oh my goodness, that's a lot of cotton.
And she,
So,
she still did.
and she still managed the household too. That's crazy.
Yes, she did.
And she's raising it, I believe, at the time about four or five of you kids at this point.
At least 4 to 5 of us.
Right. So, were all of you born in Tennessee, or was it just certain ones of you?
All of us was born in Tennessee except my sister Nancy. Nancy, at one time, my dad was working in a place in a, I think, ammunition plant in St. Louis, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
So she was born there, lived there. We lived there for about I guess a little over a year, and then we moved back to Tennessee.
Do you remember that place by any chance, or do you only remember Tennessee?
I only remember Tennessee.
Okay, gotcha. So did you children have to pick cotton as well, or was that only for your parents to do?
As soon as we got old enough, we picked cotton as well.
So how old would you say you were when you first started picking cotton by any chance?
Maybe 10 or younger. Say 10 to be.
Okay, so if somebody doesn't understand what picking cotton means, I mean, they might think it's just like a slavery time that they did. What would you say exactly? How would you break it down for somebody they
The
did?
planting is a it's a plant,
Mm-hmm.
and they have balls on it, like green balls.
Mm-hmm.
And when they ripen, they come open.
Okay.
They burst open, and there's white fiber in those balls, and
Mm-hmm.
that's cotton. It's still got the cotton seeds in it, but that's where you take it to the gin to remove the seeds and the impurities from it.
Okay.
But you are picking that cotton. You're not the bolls, but you're just picking the cotton out of the bolls.
Right. Now, did they provide you the equipment to do that? Like, say, the sack, the whatever you needed to do with that, or
Yes, they provide the sacks for you. And so the next day when if you picked at a certain place at a certain time, they gave you the sacks and you left the sacks there. And then the next morning when you picked the cotton again, you were given your original cotton sack they furnished.
right. So, what time would you say you typically would start that day exactly?
Basically, you started around sunup, maybe 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
till the sun set.
Okay. So that was a full day's work. You did this when you were not going to school, I take it.
We did this when we were not in school, and school started in August.
Mm-hmm.
And if our dad owned the farm or was sharecropper, you could get out. But after that, you started school, but school was going on still. I mean, the only way you got out of school is if your dad was on the farm or
Mm-hmm.
sharecropper. But you still had to pick cotton, even on weekends, on Saturdays,
Did you have to do it on Sundays as well, or was that just only on Saturdays?
only on Saturdays.
Okay, so it was a 6 day week basically.
Yes.
Gotcha. And that was
And you did it when it was hot.
you probably did it when it was cold too, I take it.
Oh, yeah, I remember when it's another type of picking cotton. It's called pulling cotton. You pull the bolls and
Mm-hmm.
that,
Okay.
so you pull all that and then they separate it. But yes, I remember pulling cotton when it
Mm-hmm.
was ice on the ground, stopping every so often to build a fire to warm our hands up.
Wow, that's really cold. And
It was really cold, yes.
so the schools that you went to, they were obviously they weren't like the tradition. Were they like the schools they are today, or were they a little bit different the way schools are
It
today?
was called an elementary school, and it was basically from first grade to the eighth grade.
Okay, so that's a little bit different
And
from some school.
it was small school because
Mm-hmm.
when I started school in 1956,
Mm-hmm.
the first and second graders were together.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was another classroom for third, fourth, and fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other grades were sixth, seventh, and eighth graders.
So they were in separate rooms, I take it. They weren't in all one individual room,
No,
correct?
there were separate rooms for
Okay.
all grade, for the first two, and then for the last middle three, and then the last three.
Now, obviously, school lunches are very different from the way they used to be and everything like that. How did they do school lunches when you were a kid? Did your mom pack you guys lunches? Did you get lunch from school?
At first, my mom fixed a lunch, and
Okay.
then they had a lunch which was cheap, $1 a week for hot lunches.
Okay.
That was a meal, a
Hmm.
dessert, and your milk.
So that meal could be anything, basically. You're saying that hot meal could be.
Yes, from chicken to spaghetti to soup.
So, what was your favorite school lunch, would you say?
I like the vegetable soup because it was made with all the leftover vegetables and made left soup, and then
Mm
sandwiches to go with it. Peanut butter banana sandwich, not fried, but
hmm.
and then the pimento and cheese sandwiches. You could, if you're higher grade, you got more food, obviously. But
Mm
and then we had a popsicle, well, a, what they would call a bar. It had chocolate over it,
hmm.
and
Mm
then
hmm.
vanilla ice cream underneath it. But you could buy, if you had the money, you could buy extra. But right now, no, I
Okay.
did, but it was still insufficient that you would feel.
Right. Now, were the bathrooms inside or outside for the schools by any chance?
They were in the inside. I
Oh,
mean, the bathrooms when I was growing up were outside.
okay. So your home didn't have the inside bathroom. It was only the school one that had the inside one.
That's correct. I remember. Yeah,
Okay, so when you were picking cotton, was that inside or was that outside the bathrooms as well? That was outside or was that in the woods
it was
or
out in the woods wherever you could find a place to.
Gotcha. And I guess you didn't have technically toilet paper. You just
You use
made.
cotton.
I guess they didn't take that away from you because they figured you knew that's the only way you could basically relieve yourself properly.
Right. You want to be, yeah.
Right. And okay, so all of you children did that basically, like that picked the cotton. The first five of you, correct?
The first five, and my sister, older sister, were, it, I guess they realized that her health could not handle it. Let me go back to this. My mother's first children were preemies. I was a preemie. My sister was born at home. The doctor didn't really weigh her, so he said 4 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it was 3 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I was born prematurely. I was supposed to have been born in August, but I was born on my uncle's, Bobby's, my dad's brother, 13th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
My brother was born in Memphis, so obviously they had inside bathroom, and
Mm-hmm.
he was born a few weeks early too. But
Mm-hmm.
because he was born in a hospital, they didn't release him till he weighed 5 pounds.
Right. Now you weren't born in a hospital now, correct?
No, I was born, I think, in a clinic of sorts. My sister
Okay.
was born at home, but I was born in a clinic, and because I guess they thought I could thrive, they let me go home. My older sister now was born without fingernails or toenails, and she had to learn to suck. She didn't know how.
Wow.
She didn't have that. They had to feed her with an eyedropper.
Oh my goodness.
Me, I think I knew how to like that. I had more of a, I had more. I guess more. I looked more healthier than she did.
Right. So she had a lot of health issues, you were saying. Do you want to describe some of those health issues by any chance?
Heart condition,
Mm-hmm.
female problems,
Mm-hmm.
nerve damage in her hearing where she couldn't hear as well, eyesight problems.
Wow.
I can't think of any others, but those were enough to knock her for the loop.
Okay. Gotcha. Wow. You must miss her. What year did she die exactly?
She died in 1974. I was not quite 24 years old. She was not quite 26. I mean, we both knew she was in bad health, and we both thought she would live to be in her 30s. But after she got diagnosed, really finally found the right diagnosis, she died within years. Within a year of that diagnosis.
She never married, correct?
No.
Okay, so, but all of the rest of you have been married at least once.
At least once. I've been married once. One sister's been married before, but other sisters are in, and brothers are in multiple marriages. I've been married multiple times.
Right.
But my sister and I now, we lived together as roommates. We were roommates for a while, and we worked together. We did different kinds of work, but we were roommates. And when we moved, soon after we moved, about a year after we moved to Memphis, my sister and I did.
Right, gotcha. Okay, so the youngest two children did not pick cotton, correct?
No, my dad at this time was he worked for this man that owned land, and he did some farming work, but basically he worked as a mechanic.
Okay.
I mean, when I grew up, after he became a sharecropper, he worked there was a naval base in Millington, Tennessee at nighttime, and he worked at nighttime fueling planes for Navy, and he worked there for a while. Then he worked for a place called E.J. Lavino's, which is no longer there. They made if you cut up on a battery, basically at the time, I don't know if it still is or not, but there's this black goo stuff that's inside of a battery, and he worked where they made that inside of that battery stuff.
Okay.
I mean, his clothes, which he changed clothes into, always had a blackish tinge to them after they were washed, even though they were clean. They still kept that blackish tinge to them.
Your father stayed a mechanic until his latter days, correct?
Yes, my dad was a mechanic. In fact, he died while at work.
Wow.